And now, the National Association of Realtors $418 million settlement, designed to help put the lawsuits involving real estate commissions in the past and provide a path forward for the association, its realtor members, and consumers all across America. Let's talk about the settlement now and what it might mean to you if you plan to buy or sell property. Joining us now is Kevin Sears, broker-owner of Sears Real Estate in Springfield, Massachusetts, and the president of the National Association of Realtors. Kevin, welcome to Real Estate Today.
Stephen, it's always great to be with you and looking forward to today's conversation.
I am so glad you're here. And so, Kevin, let's talk about that big $418 million settlement. Tell us, why did the National Association of Realtors settle?
Well, I do appreciate the question, and I think that question is top of mind for a lot of folks. And what I'll just say is that from the onset of the litigation, we were always open to resolving the issues with the plaintiffs. Before the trial, during the trial, and obviously after the trial, we had these conversations. And so what we did is we had a couple of goals that we wanted to make sure that we achieved. One was to secure a release of liability for as many of our members, our associations, our MLSs as we possibly could. But also we wanted to be able to preserve the choice that consumers have regarding real estate services and compensation. And through this settlement, we were able to achieve both of those goals, which will provide a path forward for not only our members, but for the consumers that we work with. And we want to be able to continue to allow folks in the U.S. to have the opportunity to buy, sell, and transfer real property. And you've heard me say that many times before.
Absolutely. And of course, Real Estate Today is a show for consumers. And so I'm really glad you're with us today to talk about this and explain to them what's going on and what we can expect. Now, a couple of key points, Kevin. First, NAR has always maintained it has done nothing wrong, and that the goal all along was to help sellers sell their homes and to help buyers buy those homes. What's your take on that, Kevin?
From the onset and through this settlement agreement, the National Association of Realtors does deny any wrongdoing in connection with the multiple listing service cooperative compensation model rule. And the goal to resolve the litigation was we wanted to be able to preserve the consumer's choice and to protect our members to the greatest extent possible. And so we were able to achieve both of these things through the settlement. At the end of the day, our current policies have been good for consumers. We're going to have to change them a little bit, but we're still going to be able to serve the consumer in the different markets that we serve. And we do feel that cooperative compensation helps to make professional representation more accessible, and it allows for more fair housing opportunities, expands the potential pool of buyers for people that are looking to sell their properties. And so the fact is, as I said, there's some rules changing. The offer of compensation will no longer be able to be offered on the MLS. So that means that the compensation that will be paid to a cooperating broker will have to be off the MLS. It will be, as it always has been, negotiable. And so the consumer that wants to buy will just have to consult with their real estate professional and get more information about that. But what I will say is that offers of cooperating compensation are still allowed as part of this settlement. So a buyer who engages a buyer representative, they have a written agreement. It will spell out what the agent is looking to be paid. And then it's a matter of figuring out how that payment will come. And the consumer can pay it. They can pay a percentage. They can pay a flat fee, a fixed amount. But they can also see if the seller is offering cooperating compensation, which could be used for the buyer to pay their representative. So there is still the opportunity for cooperating compensation in the marketplace, which we do believe will be good not only for sellers, but for buyers.
And Kevin, another key point. The settlement is not final until it's approved by the federal court. Is there any indication of when that might happen?
We reached the settlement on March 15th. We expect that within a few weeks of that date, it would be in front of the judge for preliminary approval. And then we expect that probably around December is when the judge would make a final ruling and approve the settlement. So there is going to be a little bit of time, but looking at how it will play out, we're hoping that by the end of the year, we'll have a final approval from the judge.
I see. So, Kevin, as we continue talking about the big settlement, let me ask you this. I know that a lot of national media outlets are saying the NAR settlement will drive down the price of houses across America. So, Kevin, is that true? Is that false? Or somewhere in between?
Well, it might be somewhere in between, Stephen. Really, at the end of the day, the cost of housing has to do with a very fundamental thing in economics, supply and demand. And until we have more supply, the prices are going to remain where they're at. So just the fact that the settlement is happening and that consumers can negotiate their commission rate, which is always, as long as I've been in business, been negotiable, that in itself, I do not believe will bring down the cost of housing.
Interesting. And so, Kevin, let me ask you now to speak directly to every buyer and seller listening to this. If someone planning to buy real estate asked you, Kevin, what's this mean to me? What would you tell them?
What I would tell them is what this means is that you will still have the opportunity to engage a real estate professional to represent you, to have a fiduciary duty to you, but they will more clearly explain to you how they will be paid. And so, as I said earlier, anytime we can have those conversations with the consumer, that's a good thing. And so what the consumers, sometimes they miss out, or the media has told the story not completely accurately. It's not just as simple as see, click, sign, and buy. The process to buy the home, there's hundreds of things that will happen in a typical transaction. So anytime a buyer can have a representative to help guide them and steer them through the myriad of steps that it takes to successfully close on their dream home, I say the better off they'll be by making sure that they have a representative working for them.
Excellent. And now, Kevin, the same question for someone planning to sell property in America. If they asked you, what's this mean to me, Kevin? What would you say?
I would sit down with them and explain the services that I would be providing as a listing broker. I would also talk about the commission or the fee that I would be looking to charge them. And I would talk to them about the benefit of offering cooperating compensation to a buyer representative. One of the reasons is that when we're in a transaction and we have a prospective buyer that's working with someone on the other side, the buyer's agent is going to do the due diligence needed to make sure that the buyer has already got financing approval, that the buyer has inspectors lined up, and that the buyer is going to be able to navigate through all of the challenges and different steps of the home buying process and transaction. And then if they push me on it, I'll also point to statistics for other countries that the plaintiff's attorney pointed to in Australia and the United Kingdom, where the commission only gets paid to the seller's agent, and let them know that over 30% of transactions fail in those countries because it's buyer beware. There's no buyer representation. There's no buyer's agent that's going to navigate this unrepresented buyer through the transaction. So anytime I can have the conversation about why it's a good idea to offer cooperating compensation to keep professionals on both sides of the transaction, I will do that. And then I will just have to explain to them that no longer will I be able to offer a unilateral offer of compensation on the MLS. Instead, we're going to have to market things just a little differently so that the buyer reps will know whether or not there's compensation being offered.
And Kevin, the last question. Let's sum it up. For every homeowner, every home seller, and every home buyer in America, is everything going to be okay?
What I do want to let you know is there's definitely going to be some changes that come down, but I am optimistic about the future of the real estate industry. I've been a practitioner and a realtor since 1994, and a lot has changed in those 30 years. So one of the things that I do know about our members, the members of the National Association of Realtors, is that we do know how to adapt. And so I think that there's going to be some changes as we talked about. And I think that the market will adapt to what those changes are. And I'm just by nature a glass is half full kind of guy. So I am optimistic that as the dust settles, the new rules go into place, we get the settlement approved, that people here in the U.S. that are looking to sell their home will still be able to sell their home. People who are looking to purchase home will still be able to buy that home. And I believe that realtors will continue to be dream makers and help the consumer to achieve their American dream.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate you being on the show today and telling us all about the National Association of Realtors $418 million settlement. Kevin, thank you for being on the show.
As always, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to our next conversation.